So, John, please come up. How's that?
Thank you, Aaron. Time is running on, but I think this is one of Tanker's lines. As Henry VIII said to his many wives, I won't keep you long. Tanker had an interesting comment when he was saying that there were protests and so on, and I can remember, and I'm speaking to you as a Liberal candidate who ran for the Liberal Party in every single provincial election here in the Miramichi between 1971 and 2003. So over that 33-year period, I ran 7 campaigns as the Liberal candidate. So I think I've earned my right to talk as a Liberal. And in all of that time, the one thing that motivated me, and motivates, I think, everyone, at least initially, in getting into politics, is the desire to do something to improve their community. Not just to serve the community, but to improve the community. To leave it in a better way than when they first were elected. A couple of little stories that are interesting, how people change. You talk to the crowds. I remember in 1982, the Trudeau government had announced that it was closing the base. And of course there were marches and protests and big marches. We all remember those. Day of protest, day of concern. And of course, it was a federal issue. But the next Liberal that was on the ballot were the provincial Liberals in the 82 election. So we, as provincial Liberals, tried to plead with our federal colleagues, can you really change your mind? Can you do something? So we finally were able to get a meeting with the Minister of National Defense. He was an MP from Ottawa, from Quebec City. So we were all ushered, not to meet him on the base. They said, he's going to meet you after. He's coming down to tour the base and he'll meet you after. So we were all ushered into the back room of the Portage restaurant. Reg McDonald, Frank McKenna, and myself. We were all candidates in 82. So we waited and we waited and we waited because our federal colleague was going to come and talk to us about saving a major, major employer in our community. And as Liberal to Liberal, we knew that he would listen to us. So finally we looked, and here were these men in uniform coming in. So we went over and we said, is the minister with you, Mr. Colonel or Mr. Major? No. Well, where is he? And he went and he parted the curtain and he said, do you see that plane that's taking off? He's on that. And we were all thrown out. Well, Frank hung on by 50 votes and went on to become his own career. But we lost. We lost. So people sometimes take it out on the first representative of the party. They want to teach a lesson. I think you heard that tonight. You can't get a poke at Liberals. I guess Monday is something that people have to think about. But as a Liberal, I can tell you the most frustrating thing that I have seen is the Miramichi that tears itself apart. We throw one in, put one out, and always, instead of supporting a spokesperson for Miramichi, doesn't matter, Liberal, Conservative, NDP, doesn't matter. As long as they stand with the people of the Miramichi, you support that person. after 82, and when I was thrown out, they gave me a little leave, and they made me mayor of Newcastle and brought me back. Jake Stewart talked about political figures dying. Well, I mean, I think Churchill said one time that ordinary people only die once. Politicians get to live and die many times. But after 82, a good conservative came up to me and he said, "Don't take it personal. The reason we threw you out because you were too honest." And I said, "I don't know what it says about you guys, but anyway." So he said, "You know, Mr. Hatfield wanted to get rid of you really bad. He said, we spent $1 million to defeat you. What do you think of that?" Well, I said, "You're not so smart. For half of that, I would have quit." So they rubbed their eyes and brought me back again in 87 and waited for it for a while longer. But in the end, I always believed that you dance with the one that brung you. You stand with the people, whether you win or lose, that voted for you, that supported you, and that believe in you. And that's the only way that you can really have respect in your community. It doesn't matter, liberal, conservative, NDP, there are all kinds of good people. The motive is to recognize that when you're elected to represent your community. You're not elected to be a voice for bureaucratic and government officials to go back and tell the people in your community what they can and can't have, and that's the way it is too. I won't be long, but I'll tell you a little situation here that how Miramicheers sometimes fail to stand together because sometimes we bury important issues because of political concerns. Now, right now, there are a lot of people very, very upset about what's going on with nursing homes, Newcastle Lumber, Hebert's Bottling, hospital privatization, loss of teachers, knocking down North. And a lot of good liberals, and they're good people too, are very upset about the tone of all this. But if it were the other way around, if the Tories were doing it, the liberals would be saying, "What about that bottle exchange? What about Anderson's Mill? What are you doing closing all these places down?" So we then, as a community, we all fight among ourselves against our best interests. We do that. 1984, the Liberals had made a decision to close the base. In that election, Maroney comes down. Bud Jardine is the candidate. He likes to eat hot dogs when he's a kid at Ben's and says, "I want to do something. So if you vote for my man, we're going to save that base and we're going to keep it open." And the people of the Miramichi voted for Bud Jardine and they voted for Maroney. And the base was kept open. 1984 was a rematch. Morris Dion against Bud Jardine, John Turner against Maroney, same players. People in Miramichi said, "We've had enough of this guy that wants to save the base. We don't like Maroney, so we're going to throw him out." So Bud Jardine lost, but Maroney kept the base open just the same. Moved into a military army base and so on. Finally, in 1993, on a commitment to close the base, the people said, "We're going to make sure." So they vote for the party that's committed to closing the base. So in 1995, the base closes, and then people, how did that happen? We don't recognize ourselves, what's in our best interests, for ourselves. Now today, we're in a different situation. We're facing the very survival of our community. Now this is not a partisan thing. I know that people will talk about it, but we are talking about saving the very basic heart and soul of our community. That's what, it doesn't matter if you're a liberal or conservative, it's not a good thing to see Anderson's Mill going all around here and 140 people and their families being deprived. Nobody will agree with that. You can't make a political argument on that. It's not a good thing to see 240 nursing home employees being told that you're going to be all laid off and you're going to have to try to convince some private company to take you back. It's not a good thing to see 40 people, mayors lose their jobs. It's not a good thing. Nobody can agree. But it's a good thing to see employees at the Miramichi Hospital who've been there for years be sent home by some private company that's been giving them marching orders. Now, I'm your representative on the hospital. You elected me in 2012. So I'm not telling you any tales of the school, but you can look in the paper any day and you can see the Minister of Health is announcing they're going towards privatization of services. They've already identified, I believe, the company. The company is going to now begin to manage the food services and the cleaning services at all the hospitals. Now, right away, this is going to mean about 30 people in the management position gone. So, okay, that's management, that's all right. They're gone. And they have no recourse because they're not in the union. But this new company that is now going to take charge, they are going to be identifying where they say there will be savings. And this will eventually mean as many as 300 less people working in the hospital system. They will come in and say, we don't need 10 people in the kitchen in the Miramichi Hospital, we only need 7. So you've got to get rid of them. So, yes, they'll be bumping and so on, but in the end, those 3 positions will be gone. Now, this was not a decision of the hospital board. This was a decision by the government in Fredericton. They just told the hospitals, this is the way it's going to be. So much for hospital board autonomy. This is the way it's going to be. So I'm not telling you anything that's confidential. But this is a movement that we're seeing towards privatization. This is the way things are going. It's the way things are going in the world. We had an interesting debate last night of the Democratic Party in the United States. And the whole issue is the drift towards wealth being concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer people, and the working class and the middle class being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And finally, when they're going to be no longer squeezed here, then the jobs are sent overseas for people who are working for even less. Where did this P3 thing come from? Well, it didn't come overnight. In December of 2014, I'm going to just pretend that I'm like your local pastor. And we're going to look at Mark chapter 17, verse 7. Everybody take your Bibles out now. In December of 2014, and I'll quote, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau has made it abundantly clear that he is a big proponent of the public-private partnership model. He gave this opinion in his keynote address to the annual Canadian Council for Public-Private Partnerships National Conference in Toronto. Well, when our colleagues were running last September, there was no talk of P3. I and my wife and my family were very, very big supporters of Bill Fraser. Lisa Harris used to work for me as my EA. I was very proud to work for him. I liked Robert Travers, but Liberals don't vote Conservative. So there was no talk at that time of going P3. There was just talk, we need a new nursing home, we need a nursing home. Everybody knew what that meant. It's going to be a new nursing home and more beds, and basically the same concept. When we built the new hospital, we amalgamated Hotel Dieu and Miramichi. Staff cleaned out their locker on Friday afternoon, and they moved in on Monday morning and kept their seniority and kept their benefits, and away we went. They're building schools here in the city. They're going to get rid of Harkinson, Croft, and they're going to build a new school. Well, they're not firing all the school teachers. They're not firing the bus drivers and so on. They're just going to be on a Friday afternoon. They're going to clean out their lockers in Harkinson, Croft, and on Monday they're going to move into the new schools. Still the same, all their benefits and pensions and so on. So what's behind all of this? Well, there was no talk of that at the election time. There was no talk at election time of doing anything other than supporting the workers at Anderson's Mill. And I think, and I'm looking at how all this comes down, there is, I guess maybe it's not partisan what's happening here. The most prominent Liberal family in the past 100 years in Newcastle was the Anderson family. W.S. Anderson was an MLA for 26 years. Minister of Highways, the Anderson Bridge is named after. Senator Margaret Anderson, one of the most highly respected individuals ever from this community. Dedicated, true to the Liberal cause, believed in it. Royce Anderson was for many years the president of my Liberal Association. When I see now what's happened to this noble family that's always tried to provide an industry here in the community, it's sad. It's sad. And you wonder where this is coming from. So there was no talk of P3, there was no talk of Anderson's Mill being closed down, being totally put out of business. That didn't occur last fall. There was no talk of shutting down or starving out Hebert's Bottom. Certainly no talk of getting rid of 300 teachers around the province. There was definitely no talk of going up to Sunny Corner and knocking down the school. It's so ironic. When I was an MLA, we spent $8 or $9 million to redo North and Southwest Regional High. And Lisa was my EA while we were doing it. Now, she's up there, saying this is a possible that you might have the school gone. There was no talk of that. There was no talk of privatization of hospital services. There was no talk. So people joyfully endorsed these two candidates because they believed in them. They believed in them. The only thing that they promised that they would do, and they were true to the word, was to liberalize abortion and make it unrestricted. They promised to do that, and they did. So and then I was in the platform. Now, P3 is now going to be a reality. And that's one of the reasons why people maybe are not coming out to these. Because good Liberals have told me that their employees are afraid. They're afraid because if they put up a sign on their lawn, they wear a shirt, or they come to a meeting, or they go to a protest, that's going to be noted. And when the time comes to pick and choose who's going to get in the new building, that will be remembered. That will be remembered. So you can't blame people for being afraid. You can't blame them for being afraid. Good Liberal told me Why are they upset? They're going to be able to go and work at the new nursing home. If they're qualified, who decides? Everybody who's working at Mount St. Joseph and Miramichi Nursing Home, aren't they qualified now? So if that little sticker is in there, there's either saying that Mount St. Joseph and the Miramichi Nursing Home has been hiring unqualified people. They're either saying that, or they're saying that there's going to be different qualifications when they hire you. Different qualification, and you'll have no recourse because it's going to be a private owner who's going to pick and choose who's going to be hired, and maybe he's going to get a few phone calls from the politicians say, look, my niece is looking for a job, could you get her in there? Oh, no trouble. My wife would like to have a job there, can you get her in there? My cousin in Chicoutimi would like to have a job, can you get him in there? How do you know? And if that's not the case, if there's no question about your qualifications, and there's going to be lots and lots of jobs, there should be no hesitation to answer the request that was made at the Miramichi exhibition. We want our jobs guaranteed. Will you guarantee our jobs? It's so simple. It's so simple. Now, Bill and Lisa have said that they're going to try. They're going to try to write it in the contract. They're going to try to get Anderson's Mill going again. They're going to try to get E-Beer's bottling back on their feet. They're going to try. They're going to try to get it in the agreement that priority will be given. Now, these are all generalities. Priority will be given to the existing laid-off employees. It's like you can't get to heaven without dying. You know what I mean? You have to be laid off first. Lose all your benefits. There's even the question about, is the pension plan able to support the pensions? Because Hotel Lou and Miramichi senior citizens will no longer exist. They have a pension plan. Is there enough money? Is the pension plan solvent? Is there enough money in there to pay the pensions for the people who are already on pensions? Because if the money's not there, you can't make magical money. Now, governments generally have pension plans that are underfunded, but they just keep paying the pensions because there's revenue coming in from existing and future employees, and they just kick the can down the road and they worry about it later. And every once in a while, they throw in a few $100 million that kind of pop up the pension plan. But how do you do that when the employers, Miramichi Senior Citizen, Hotel Lou, no longer exist? Who's putting the money into those pensions? So, I'm not raising any false fears here, but that is a concern that hasn't been addressed. It would be a lot easier if this new company would just absorb those pension plans, bring them in, bring the employees with them, all one big happy family. There's no possibility or no reason for people to be laid off because they're downsizing. There's going to be more jobs than ever. So what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem is the government is moving towards a corporate type of structure. Privatization of facilities. Justin has set the tone on this. And of course, Patrice supports this because candidates support their leader. I mean, this isn't a condemnation. These are facts. What I'm giving you are facts here. And any good politician is proud of the position he takes. If you're in favor of P3, then you don't mind people saying you're in favor of P3. No, you're being negative now. You're all being negative. You know, if you don't like the idea that Anderson's Mill has lost its wood allocation because it's been a government decision, what's wrong with bragging about to a certain extent? When I heard people in Frederick or in exhibitions saying, "Go back to your leader, go back to your leader," Lisa was saying it was decided this would go P3. We're going to go back to the people who made this decision. Well, this past March, Premier Gallant set up a committee of 2 whose job was to go out and identify $500 million in savings. You know who the co-chairs of that committee are? Victor Woodrow, Minister of Health, and Lisa Harris, MLA. Pretty important job to find $500 million in savings. Pretty important job. If you're heard of the caboose on the train, you've got a job like that from the Premier. So she has influence. She has a lot of influence. And those people that made that decision, all she has to do, she and Bill, is go and make a decision. Because I was chairman of the Liberal Caucus for 8 years. And I know that major government decisions, tell you in Ottawa too, major government decisions don't get very far if they don't have caucus support. I can tell you that. And I know that when I was chairman of caucus, and I was elected by my colleagues as chairman, I wasn't picked by the Premier, I was elected, that a decision, we're talking about legislation now, we're talking about much government initiatives. A decision was not approved unless there was a consensus in caucus. And we didn't have any votes in caucus. So consensus meant everybody had to be on board. So if there was a piece of legislation that came in, how many have a problem with this? 3 or 4 hands. What's your problem, Joe? Well, I don't like that clause number 3. If you get that out of there, I can support it. So eventually it was whittled down. Is there anybody else who has a problem? Finally you got it down. And then, of course, the caucus went out. They had their say, and they would support. That's why you hear people say they're all trained SEALs. But they had their fight, and they all come out with black eyes, teeth missing, and so on. It's sometimes very controversial. But that's where the fight takes place. So in that caucus, there would have been a fight on going P3. There would have been a fight on endorsing the Allward forestry plan that gave the last of our wood away to the Irvings. And in the end, all of the MLAs went for it. All of the MLAs, there was no them or they or somebody, it was them in the room that decided that. I was there, I know how it was done. They say the Premier is the boss, but the Premier is the leader. And I'm not saying that if there's something very important and the Premier wants to pull a mulligan and he wants to get his way, he's going to get his way. But if he does that on everything, people think that the ministers just sit outside the Premier's door every morning waiting for the marching orders. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have very, very competent people who are called into cabinet. And they're not going to continue with a job like that. People that give up their careers and so on, to be sitting and listening to some little fart that's in the Premier's office telling them what they have to do every day. They say, I don't need this, I'm leaving. So the Premier can only get his way to a certain extent. After that, it's the team. So all of these decisions that are happening here are happening with the full, enthusiastic endorsement of our local MLAs. They do. That's the bad news. The good news is they can get a change made. They can get a change made. They have, the numbers are very close, they can't be ignored. They can say, we want this changed. If you can have publicly owned, publicly operated nursing home in Niguac, publicly owned, publicly operated nursing home in Edmonton, publicly owned, publicly operated nursing home yet to be established in Tracadie, publicly owned, publicly operated nursing home in the former Premier's riding in Rexton, then why hang out for the exception here? Do the same thing here. No one's going to say, in the end, I'll close with this. In the end, we want to know, what do we have to do? That's what it comes down to. What do we do? And that's basically causing the frustration. We know what's wrong. We know what's wrong. I remember one time when we had an issue at the post office. I was on town council, John McKay was mayor. We had an issue at the post office. They were laying off a person. So it was decided we're going to invite Bud Jardine, he was the MP, in. We're going to invite Bud Jardine in and have a talk with him, who's a new candidate, who's one job. So anyway, Bud was very cordial and explained, well, this is what's happening, there's only so much money, and we're trying to economize, and we're trying to do this or that. And he was very articulate in all the reasons why this was being done. And Mayor Crean said, God damn it, Bud, we know why you're doing it. We just don't want you to do it. Well, that's what it is, okay? We know what's wrong. But we have to do more than just identify the grief we're in. Governments can change their mind. When NB Power was going to be sold by our colleagues, it was very, very unpopular with Liberals. There had been a promise made by Sean Graham in 2 campaigns that if elected, he would not sell NB Power. You know, a politician very much values his word. That's why they're very vague, because they want to leave some wiggle room there. They're very hard to pin down because they don't want to be held accountable. Say, you broke your word. Oh, no, I didn't. So, but the protests and so on caused finally, they changed. Now, in this recent government, we've had some changes as well. So, this is where the happy talk comes in. The happy talk. If I can find my glasses. There was a snowplow contract. Remember that?
Yeah.
They promised that they were going to manufacture as much as possible in New Brunswick. So the first thing they did was to award a snowplow contract to a company in another province. Quebec. So it was apparently a decision made because it was cheaper. Only $100 or so in the difference compared to a New Brunswick company. But in order to finalize the deal, they had to send some civil servants to Quebec to check out the specifications and check out what kind of facility was going to make these snowplows and so on. And that would have put the cost even higher than it would have paid if they had the New Brunswick company do it. But in the end, they turned it down. They said, no, we're going to award the company in New Brunswick the contract, even though now we're going to have 2 snowplows, or actually we're not going to have them, we're just going to pay the company in Quebec whatever it would have been their profit. And then we're going to, so the whole thing costs more. But they did change. Then there was the other issue, the senior citizens. There was no talk of squeezing the last penny out of the old people's piggy banks last September. There was something the platform said, we're going to show respect for our seniors. There was so much respect shown that when the cabinet was picked, they picked the seniors advocate in the province, Mrs. Rogers. The Mother Teresa of seniors was asked to be the minister. And right away, they have a new policy. We're going to ask the seniors to pay more. Now, nobody ever heard of a government saying that a tax is voluntary. Okay? We're asking. Kind of shame you, won't you just want to pay and help out? Well, instead of saying we're going to expect you to pay more, we're asking. And of course, most of you say, thanks, but no thanks. I think I'll pass on that. So then they try to make the case. They said, why don't he's going to bring in $1.5 million to squeeze the last nickel out of the old people's sock. Okay? Why don't you put an extra cent on the HST? It's going to bring in $125 million. $125 million. Instead of paying $1.25 for a cup of coffee, you're going to pay $1.27. I know it's tough, but somebody's got to pay. Out comes the Irving's Telegraph Journal. It's a tax on business. Can't have that. In fact, the minister states putting up the tax on the HST was a lazy way to raise money. Lazy. Going to squeeze the old people, have them all sitting there wondering how they're going to pay for their pills and everything else, and worried about if they're going to be able to have enough money to bury themselves. So the government said, we don't want to go lazy. We want to go really, really rigorous. So, want to do the right thing, go tough. Anyway, the protest went on and on and on. Lo and behold, they changed. They changed. We're going to reset the dial. Reset was called reset. But the Premier, this is what he stated. Don't think you're off the hook yet. This is what he stated on September 21st, not too long ago. He said the decision to press the reset on the nursing home asset policy, this is for old people, had more to do with poor communications of the plan than the policy itself. So basically, the problem with it wasn't that they were going to squeeze this money out of the old people. It's just they didn't do a very good sales job. The policy was still there. So they really are going to come back. They really believe in this. Any good politician will believe in something they think is good. So they think this is the right thing to do because they're just asking people to pay more. So it's only a kind of a reprieve. Then there was the issue of the nursing home here in the Miramichi. Bill went before the Chamber of Commerce at a breakfast back in April to explain the budget. At that time, MLAs were very open to talk about things. Explain the budget, which was the right thing to do. He was asked, after it was agreed that a new nursing home was essential, he was asked, why is there nothing in the budget for a new nursing home? This is his answer. He agreed that a new nursing home should have been signed off long ago, so on. But, this is a quote, he added that the former Conservative government's nursing home infrastructure plan, released in 2011, meanwhile, will prevent the current government from making any formal decisions on new infrastructure until the old plan expires next year. Now, there's something called an election happened in September of 2014, which was 6 months before this statement was made. People thought that when they got rid of the Tories, they got rid of the policies. Little did they know that the new government said, no, we're going to keep the Tory policies for another year or so. Our hands are tied. 1 week later, there was a big rally at the exhibition demanding a new nursing home, and lo and behold, there was no more talk of waiting for the Tories' 5-year nursing home plan expiring next year. Now we have an announcement of a new nursing home. That's what public pressure will do. They will change. They will change. but it was kind of like a backhanded change. You're getting a new nursing home, but you're losing your jobs. Okay? What do you want? And of course, the way it's going now, they're going to make this nursing home go away if they keep protesting. And maybe why don't they just all go away? So you see your copies come up. Yes, we want a new nursing home. So it's designed to bring the community in and pit them against the workers. Because the community says, I want a new nursing home. Well, I want to keep my job. Well, you're going to have your job if you're qualified. So, again, the Miramichi is divided within itself. Then, we have so many opportunities. Time. So many opportunities to get them to change their mind. And they will. Now, in closing, on Monday, people are going to go to the polls. They're going to make a decision. They're going to make a decision on what they should do. There will be several candidates there. This is the only opportunity where people who are concerned about what's happening in the Miramichi can say, we are not going to roll over and accept this anymore. Now, my good friend Patrice is in favor of P3s. Okay? That's not negative. It's not positive. It's just a fact. Now, whether you're in favor of P3s, you've got to make that decision when you go to vote. I know that with regard to 2008, when all the mills closed, he was given a very important position. When the 1,500 jobs were lost within the Miramichi community, he was put in charge of a committee called the Miramichi Action Committee. I was mayor for part of that time. He was put in charge, a task to try to compensate for the loss of all of these jobs. Compensate for the loss of all these jobs. So, he was able, and this is the statement, was finally released on August the 6th, 2008, when the Premier in a joint press conference was joined by Miramichi Action Committee Patrice Finnegan to announce the government's solution, Sean Graham's solution to the loss of 1,500 jobs was $60,000 to support the city's wellness programs. That's like for walking trails and things like that. And they were going to help us buy 4 buses to help the unemployed people run around and look for work. Not saying it was bad, we need the buses. In fact, in the debate we had on television, Patrice noted, and you saw the debate, that bringing those buses to the city of Miramichi was the most important thing that happened in the Miramichi in 10 years. Most important. Did you say that? I said, yeah. Now that's not negative. That's not positive. He believes that. He believes that. And I think he's sincere. But as you said, what about the 1,500 jobs? Most important thing. I think the loss of 1,500 jobs was the most important thing that ever happened here. Certainly, the establishment of 550 government payroll jobs is a little bit more significant than 4 buses. He met with the Chamber of Commerce to have his breakfast talk with them. And this was held the first week of October. And this is what he stated. Generally sincere, this is what Patrice stated, that the Miramichi region is well positioned to take advantage of new opportunities. He said, with a strong modular fabrication sector flanked by robust activity in forestry, we can do it. We, in his opinion, have a robust forestry economy. No, this is like it's there. It's in the paper. I mean, I'm just giving you the situation. You can make your own decisions. I think it's important that we all appreciate where each of our candidates stand. But the only opinion I would suggest is that we need a candidate who has a real appreciation of the problems that we have here in the Miramichi and is prepared to do something about it. Not just someone who believes, and looking through rose-colored glasses, that we have a robust forestry economy, that P3 is great, and that 4 buses is the most important thing that ever came to the Miramichi in 10 years. So in the end, you're going to vote for a candidate that's going to fight for the Miramichi, stand up for the Miramichi, and not just be like Minnie Pearl when they get to Ottawa, well, I'm so proud to be here, and that's the end of it. This is where the candidate will live or die, supporting for the people of the Miramichi, and I hope on October the 19th we make the right decision. Thank you very much.
Well, people, it's been a blast. I hope everybody gets out and votes. I agree with John. We got 2 strong candidates right here, and I think they're worth our votes. If we keep putting the Liberals in power, we're screwed. So, I mean, I'm for you to vote.